All right, guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Cody Groom. Today we have some gauges for you guys. Now, this is a question I get asked a lot on Instagram, is what gauges I'm running to change the color, or how I change the color of it, or what is it? Is it a sticker? Is it a replacement? So I want to talk a little bit about that. So you can see right here, we got a bunch of different ones. Colors, different styles. These are all E92 ones, and these are all M3 specific, but basically, it's as simple as this. We're gonna take the cluster out. We can then replace the stock gauges with these and change the look of our gauges. These are not stickers. So the ones on the M3 currently are stickers, and I've just been meaning to change it for a long time. And the reality of it is when you go with stickers, it's just not gonna be perfect. Like, unless you can line it up perfectly, and I'm not talking necessarily lining up perfectly like this, right? I'm talking these numbers have to be, like, the angle of how it goes has to be lined up perfectly. Even if there's a slight overlap with a sticker, you're then gonna see like the other one. So if you're at, like, say 1000 RPM, you're gonna see the other one through that, right? So if the ones are not lined up perfectly, you're gonna have this coming when the light comes. So personally, I'm not a big fan of the sticker. You can get these at the link in the description. Each set comes with basically an RPM side of it and the speedometer. You can do any different types of variants. So in other words, you can have, you know, an M3 logo on it or not. And one of the parts that I've always not liked about the M3, like the OEM gauges, is why do they have an M on it and it doesn't light up? I think, well, the F80 for sure has it, but I can't remember if the E60 M5 does it. We set up this little thing over here so you guys can see, but basically you can see this is the red gauge. You can get an idea of how it's gonna look when it's lit up from the back. So red tends to look a little bit darker, looks more like black, but you can see that you can still clearly see through the numbers. So first off, we just need to take off the gauge cluster in here. So in here, you can see these are the red overlays. And when I take these out, I'll show you guys how different they really are. Stickers versus the full-on replacements. One thing you do have to keep in mind is your needles are red on the M3. So a red gauge with red needles. I never have a problem seeing it, but some people want to see like an offset of needles. Go ahead and take this out, and then we'll go ahead and show you guys the different gauges. All right, so taking this thing out is super easy. There are 2 bolts on the top. There's not a lot you can screw up here, but I'll tell you the things to watch out for when you're actually swapping the gauges in. For this part though, just take the 2 screws out, pull it out. Don't like yank it out because there are cables on the back connected. But yeah, other than that, it's super easy. So we're gonna do that right now. All right, so gauge cluster's out. Now, the only thing that you have, there's one plug back here, and just basically pull the top, pull it out, and that's it. So that's the only thing that's connecting this to the car. Now we just got to get this out. We got a number of different screws around the back, and pop it out, and we'll get to the gauges. Boom! All right, so to take the back off, we basically have 1, 2, 4. That's how you count, guys, in case you're wondering. Okay, cool. And then you just have a couple clips right here. There's I think 6 clips, 2 on the side and 2 up top, 2 up bottom. The hard part about getting this off is to make sure they don't click back, because there's so many of them. It's very easy for it just to get, yep, see, like that. Careful not to break these. Last thing you want to do is break this and have to get a whole new one. All right, and there you go. So that's all off. Now, these are the overlays. So if you come in right here, you can see just like little imperfections right here. There's little scratches from when I put it on using a squeegee. You can see, like, if I move this around, you can kind of see just slight air bubbles in there. And so that's gonna all be fixed by using one of the other ones. So basically take the needles off. Now here's something you have to keep in mind. You have to remember where these are gonna be at. So in other words, so they match up correctly. Now, the only hard part about this is, like, see, you can see this one right here. I'm gonna have to kind of play with it, and this is where you wanna be careful. So you wanna be careful, like, that this stays at 0, because if you take this off, you're gonna need to know where this was. You don't wanna place it back 10 or something, or it goes back. So you'll see when you get in the car too, when you plug it in, it's actually gonna do something to where it kind of does like a little thing. So you have to make sure it stays where it's supposed to be when you take that off. You don't wanna break this mechanism. You just wanna try to pop it off. It should come off pretty easy. It shouldn't be something super hard to pull off. Again, you don't want to break it. So I'd probably use a smaller pry tool. I was using a small flathead here, basically giving a tiny bit. It doesn't take a lot. Like you should not be trying to like pry it up, and also be conscious that this is a screen. But so I wish I could show you guys how these look right now. My battery's actually off in the E92, but so basically, see right now, these are a vinyl overlay. So when I take these off, underneath it, you're gonna have the original. The cool thing about these is they are completely reversible. So if you decide and you say, hey, I want to go back to OEM, all you can do is take this apart again, put the black gauges back on, and if you decide to have this gauge on right here, you can pop it back off and say, I want to go back to the OEM ones. It's super simple, and it's not something you have to worry about, not being able to go back to stock. You can also get black replacements for this, so if there's any reason why you want to go black again, and you just want the replacement of the actual gauge versus the whole cluster, you can do that as well. All right, cool. So this is just adhesive on right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull that off. Same with here, just careful not to bend any of the other parts of it. Boom. So there's the stock ones off. And then we're gonna be putting these ones on right here. Okay, so basically got the adhesive off right there. One of the biggest things too is that these actually look really damn, they almost look exactly like OEM. They're very, you can see those two side by side. They're almost identical in print quality, even the texture. This has a little more of a glossy finish than this does. It's a really nice finish. Same font too, which is cool. So exact same font, exact same design right there. These right here do have adhesive on as well. Make sure you're on the right side and make sure you're lined up. You could probably run them without, if you didn't want to adhere them down, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you didn't want to, you could probably run it without adhering it down. If you've ever taken off your cluster before or done that, it's even if you haven't, following this, you could literally do this in 20 minutes. That looks good. All right, there you go. Look at that. One thing that's cool also is you can choose these options with us if you want to have the kilometers an hour versus miles per hour. So you can take that away, kind of clean up your gauge right there. I do think this looks a lot nicer not having that part, and I have no reason for it. We can also do just the kilometers instead of miles per hour. But yeah, there you go. That's it. Just put it back together and we're good to put it back in the car. Oh, as far as needles go, again, we're gonna set them up to where they're on 0. Now you will need to readjust. What I recommend doing is putting this in the car without the casing on it, plugging it in, and then adjusting your needles slightly to make sure, because when it starts up, it does kind of a startup routine, and you wanna make sure that the needles are exactly where they should be. So in other words, if this one's gotta be right here, even if you put it 0, you want to make sure that when it turns on and you're sitting there idling, it's at 0, it's not 10 miles an hour. The first time I ever did this, I put the needles on slightly off because I had them lined up to 0, but when it did its little startup routine, it ended up sitting at 10. So you have to find exactly where these needles are going to sit when the car's off. So again, recommend plugging into your car, getting it lined up, and it shouldn't be hard from there. And if you do need to make any changes, you can always pull it out of the car real quick, do that, adjust real quick, put it back in. Pretty easy. But all right, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together, and then we will go ahead and put it back in the car. What you're gonna want to do with this is what I was telling you earlier. Unless you exactly mark where the needle was, you can do that too. But the main thing is not to turn the needle and do it. It's that you actually have to pop the needle off and put it back. And you'll see what I'm saying. So everything's at 0 right now. But if I go and plug this in, okay, so now it's plugged in. You can see where they went. See that? So plugged it in, and now this one's way off and this one's way off. So they don't actually want to be at 0. They want to be at wherever they rest. And I actually think, so you can see what I gotta do is this one I gotta pull up and turn it and put it back on. So what you wanna do is leave it right there. Try to leave those needles where they're at. Cool, and then we're gonna bring it back over there and we're gonna basically pull these off and arrange them so they're in the right place. Gauges are ready. They're gonna go back in the car now. And there's just a simple plug, pop it in, 2 screws right here, and we're good to go. All right, guys, that's gonna conclude today's video. Replacement gauges are in. They look damn good. The finish, crisp. Like, I don't know, it feels OEM. It feels like an OEM BMW performance part. But anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you got something to say, leave me a comment below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.